And we are live. Hello, everybody. Technically, I'm still on vacation, but I thought I'd pop in with a live stream just to catch everybody up on what's going on with Spelljammer and all that sort of stuff. So this is our Spelljamming stream, where I'm going to tomorrow, probably today, I'm going to put up a short video just talking about the facts of what's in the new Spelljammer. And address those concerns that people have about, you know, is there crystal spheres or not? Is there the astral plane or astral sea or whatever? Hello, and we'll talk about that today as well. So for those of you who don't want to catch that video, just pop out the chat here so I can see everybody. Here we go. Hello, the Horn King. Hello, Trolls Medin. Hello, Dragon Lord. Hello, Damien. Hello, Kickass. Tree Beetle. Nick. Grimhild. Hello. Kenneth. Shuriken Sean. Old Gabe. Kito Vash. Corey. Brian, how's it going? Have you seen the Starship minis for Spelljammer? No, not really. I've been looking at a lot of Kickstarters for miniatures, but I haven't actually checked out the WizKids miniatures yet. Making more Planet videos. Yep. Yeah, getting there. You think my audio is cutting out? How's my vacay? My vacay is going well. Basically, it's an upload vacation, so I've been working away. I mean, this is all of the scripts ready for next month. So what I've basically done is it's allowed me to work on next month's content so that I can put videos out. I know which ones are coming out in what order. I can respond to people and put slot videos in that they have requested sooner, and I can plan out a whole month's worth of content on a theme. So this month, coming month of May, will be dragons, and then the month after that will be all Spelljammer stuff. Greetings, Scorch. Hey, Matt Nerdy. Space Clown minis, yeah. Yeah. So coming up this week, I've got I'm going to be doing an update on what's new for Spelljammer. So for May, I've got the Dragon Beetle, I've got the Jacinth Dragon, I've got the Pearl Dragon, I've got video on Spelljammers, I've got the Aureum Dragon, I'm also going to be doing stuff on the Jade Dragon, the and Dragonkin, which are the precursors of Dragonborn. So it's all dragon stuff. Yeah, I totally nailed it with the Spelljammer. Yeah, so for those of you who don't know, I've been predicting that Spelljammer would shift from the phlogiston to the astral plane, based on the intro video from Baldur's Gate, the video game, and various other hints and stuff that I've sort of seen in content that I put out. So I totally called it that it would be shifting to the astral plane. I'm very happy with this. What's this? This is what you meant by tomorrow? Well, acceptable. After all, it's your channel. Plus, you may have a reason. Yes, remember there's a planet that we live on. It's round and it's got international date lines and stuff. And also when I post the times that the stream is, you should basically pay attention to that where your location is and pay no attention to where I am, because I live in Bizarro World on the other side of the planet. So that's why I post those times and stuff, because my tomorrow is not often your tomorrow. My tomorrow is actually your future. I'm living in your future right now. Yeah, so excited for Spelljammer, DB. I've done a video on the Mercury Dragon, so that would be there's no remastered videos this coming month. So they're all new videos on new old monsters. Vacation was very good. I spent the first week and a bit basically on proper vacation, totally disconnected. I was just basically answering questions and comments on YouTube on my phone, but otherwise I was disconnected from the internet, just hanging out with my sister in the Coromandel where I came from. So you'll see pictures of me on the beach. And that picture of the wizard on the beach, that's the thumbnail for the live stream, is actually the beach on the shore of the lake in Wanaka in the South Island where I used to live. So, yeah, that could have been me. The earth is round, I know. Controversial. Hey, thanks, Fred Flintstone. Dinner time, Amos? Nice. Appreciate all the comments, Amos, by the way. So what do I say to the crowd that thinks that losing the phlogiston and crystal spheres is a deal breaker and betrayed the source material? I think that the source material is still there. They can still play with the phlogiston and the crystal spheres with the modern game if they want to. But the modern audience is basically going to leave that behind and not understand what the hell you're talking about if you run a game and you've made a big change to the Spelljammer that they're aware of. Effectively, it makes the transitive plane more playable. So it gets more people into the Astral Sea, and it puts more emphasis on the wild space around the planets themselves. So this is how officially it goes with the new Spelljammer. You leave the planet's atmosphere. Your Spelljamming helm generates atmosphere for you. You don't have to worry about a bubble envelope of gas around your ship or anything. It may be different. They may have some rules for bubble envelopes of atmosphere for creatures which travel outside of the atmosphere by themselves, like dragons and things like that. A lot of those creatures that are capable of that sort of thing can cast spells that allow them to breathe without air anyway. Or a simple magical item like a torque or an amulet or ion stone of life support would be simple enough. So wild space is the area around the space around a star system. So once you've and that would formerly have been the wild space that is enclosed by a crystal sphere. Now, instead of reaching the border, which is twice the distance from the star to the furthest planet, you go that distance again, and then you'll reach a silvery area where everything sort of fades out and goes silvery, and then you transition into essentially hyperspace, which is the astral plane. And in the astral plane, you are traveling through a misty star-filled medium of the astral sea. And so your ship basically plies the mists just like it was the phlogiston, except it doesn't have any of that combustible, like the phlogiston kind of sucked, and like those of you who really like the phlogiston and the atmosphere problems and stuff of wild space, essentially you're telling me that your character starving or dying of asphyxiation is a fun way for your character to die. And I just call bullshit on that. It's not fun, and it never has been fun, and it kind of sucks having to nitpick like how many crew are on your ship and how much atmosphere they have and how much does an ogre breathe and do we have enough pot plants and stuff like that. It sucked, and they dropped it, and I'm glad that they have, and I'm not going to apologize about it. Those of you who are not happy about it, who think it's a deal breaker, you weren't going to buy the fucking product anyway. You were not going to buy the product anyway. You're certainly not going to pre-order it, so I don't care. I do not care. So it's 33 odd years since Spelljammer was released. All that material is still there. Like Star Trek: The Next Generation was popular when Spelljammer was first released. And it's a long time ago. And so the modern audience just has no reason to go back to that old technology. We've advanced, we've evolved Spelljammer, and I think it's a lot more playable. I think it's a lot more interesting. I think the Astral Sea is an excellent adventure location. It complements very well the ethereal plane and the deep ethereal and using the Radiant Citadel and stuff like that. It links in very well with Spelljammer and Planescape. So the two now work together. We don't have a separate thing. And also, crystal spheres just don't make any sense. Like, they just don't. It was a total disconnect when you started playing Spelljammer, and you're like, what? Like, the star system is contained by a huge crystal sphere? Who built it? Dunno. Can it be destroyed? Nah, it's just an indestructible thing. It's just this DM fiat. It's there, and you have to deal with it. And it's like, it sucked. It sucked. And so I'm glad that's gone. The moon is cheese, though. I would say that they're going to bring back the Juna and a lot of other different races from Spelljam, but that's those compendium articles that they're going to, compendium installments that they're going to be releasing as free digital content to people on D&D Beyond. Wizards of the Coast haven't yet taken over, like the deal hasn't been finalized on them buying D&D Beyond, so the staff have been instructed not to talk about any digital content plans that they have because they don't know yet 100% whether they're going to get that platform. They are, but they just wanted to be, cool their jets for legal reasons, which is understandable. So a lot of support, electronic support, is going to be available through D&D Beyond now, which it wasn't before. So that's cool. Hey, Dus. Thoughts on the Tracy Hickman, Margaret Weiss, Dragonlance, and Jeff Grubb Spelljammer saying Wizards of the Coast didn't tell them they were doing this prior to the announcement. Does it bode well for them? Well, hey, Ben C, thank you. Keep doing what I do. Thanks. I will. I'm not privy to the author's thoughts on the new Spelljammer and stuff. And remember, they wrote this material 30 years ago. So they're working authors that are currently writing new novels and working on other projects and other game companies and stuff like that. They're not tied to Wizards of the Coast, and they sold that IP to another company that got bought up by another company. They have no say in it, really, and Wizards of the Coast is perfectly within their rights to completely ignore Jeff Grubb or Tracy Hickman or Margaret Weiss's attitude on the new stuff and just go ahead with it as they see fit. They own it. It's theirs. They can do with it as they will. There's been particularly the Dragonlance authors have been for instance, the Dragonlance setting was developed in the car ride to Wizards of the Coast to get to TSR before they did a job interview, essentially, to give them something to put on the table as like a book series idea or something like that. So it wasn't like it was a, I don't know, huge passion project or something like that. Yeah. I like Dragonlance. I really loved the novels when I was growing up as a kid. It got me into reading. That necessarily wasn't the gateway drug that got me into reading fantasy. That was like choose your own adventure books and stuff like that. But I read the Dragon Support and Twilight and End of the Last Home and Tanis Half-Elven and Flint and Caramon and Rasslin and all them. But the world itself, like the gods are absent, the dragons are gone, it's very low magic. It was kind of depressing and hopeless at the start of it, and then all of a sudden you've got these massive battles and dragon queens and all that sort of stuff. And it's like, Also, Rasslin was a really interesting character because so the authors, when they're writing Dragonlance, didn't really pay a lot of attention to the game rules anyway, and that's fairly common with most sort of fantasy authors like R.A. Salvatore, for instance. The way that Guinevere operates is not the same as a figurine of wondrous power. Technically, she is a figurine of wondrous power, but she has abilities way beyond what the figurine of wondrous power usually has. For instance, a halfling can jump onto Guinevere when she transports to the astral plane and back again to escape from confinement for that individual. Figurines of wondrous power should not be able to do that, and yet an author has free rights to write that into the story. That's perfectly fine. But, them beginning persnickety about changes to the rules and things like that is kind of like, really? Like, you can write whatever you want, but we can't change anything? Yeah, it doesn't really work. So the thing that Dragonlance is bringing us, so Ray Winninger has introduced this box set, which is some sort of a big army skirmish type game, and I think it's meant to be played in conjunction with a set of adventures, which take place during the War of the First War of the Lance or something like that, some specific era in Dragonlance. So it's time setting specific. Dragonlance is one of those settings where if they try and kowtow to the old fans, the fandom of the original hobby, the people who played the original game, is split into those who like playing Dragonlance from this time period and those who like playing it from this time period. And so there was a big change and stuff that happened in the story of Dragonlance, and it left a lot of the fandom behind. And the same thing happened with Dark Sun. Dark Sun has got a pre this event and post this event set of fandom that you're not going to satisfy either one if you try and advance the timeline as is. So Wizards of the Coast's best option is to introduce the setting in a format that new fans are happy with, because they're the ones who actually pay money for products. Old fans generally don't. And Wizards of the Coast is quite right to be sick and tired of that and say, look, if you're not going to buy the products, you're not going to pre-order the products, we're not going to listen to your opinion because you're not paying consumers. That's fair. That's fair. I mean, if you've got somebody who's standing outside your donut shop and saying, yeah, the donuts aren't the same as they used to be, it's like, well, first of all, you bought donuts off the previous owner. Like, I've never even had you as a customer, and you're telling me to change the recipe for the donuts that everybody's buying these donuts and loving them, and you want me to change it just for you? No, I don't think so. So, I mean, why would it be any different for this business? It's kind of like the old fandom is kind of shooting themselves in the foot. And like Birthright, for instance, just died a natural death. Athos Dark Sun died a natural death. Planescape sort of died a natural death. Spelljammer just died a natural death because people just stopped buying products or just left it behind. It's the same bone of contention that people have with Wizards of the Coast changing the Forgotten Realms and advancing the timeline by 100 years, and all of a sudden there's just not enough information, and the world that they knew it from all of their source books just doesn't make sense anymore, with the Sundering and places being flooded and things like that, and not giving us any information about the new thing. So we've got people who are split into, I play the Forgotten Realms from this time period, I ignore the Sundering, I ignore the Spell Plague, and I homebrew the world as I want it. Well, that's fine, but how do we sell you any new products? We can't. So it's like, okay. So Wizards of the Coast is basically just sort of leaving the Forgotten Realms and going off planet now and expanding into what should have been and traditionally would have been high level play. But what they've done is they've brought everything back to what their surveys have told them. The active playing audience mostly plays games within this range of levels. So if they make a level 18 adventure, nobody's going to buy it. Nobody's going to use it that way, or they're going to alter it to make it so that 5th level to 10th level players can play it. Player characters can play it. It's just the way it is. So they're basically giving us what we are actively using, because they've got much better metrics to see what people are actually doing on Roll20 and various other platforms. They can see what the active audience of and consumer base of Dungeons & Dragons is doing, and they're making products to provide for those active players. So yeah, I bought the new donuts first. Yeah, I'm an old fan and I still buy the new stuff too, Grimhild, exactly. So I almost feel like I have to represent the old fans who are happy with new stuff. Like there's those of us who realize that role-playing games are in a constant state of evolution. Dungeons & Dragons will never be complete and perfect. There will always be new additions and new developments and stuff like that, because it's a living social game that we play, and we change it and chop it and make improvements. It's a technology that we're improving over time. It's been like 40 years. It wasn't that they advanced the timeline, it's that they did such a terrible job of it. Yeah, true, Anthony. Like, they did definitely drop the ball in that they didn't make a campaign setting book for the entire Forgotten Realms for 5th edition. They probably should have done that. But at the same time, they didn't consult with all those other authors and stuff, because the other authors are busy doing other stuff that I probably don't want to go back and redress some of the stuff. There are some of the original authors and creators who are making third-party content. That's where you get these books on Rashomon and The Great Dale and that sort of stuff. So if you want support for the rest of the Forgotten Realms, third-party content on D&D Beyond and on the DM's Guild and Drive-Through RPG is where you find that stuff. The problem is there's such a wash of material that it would be better if Wizards of the Coast sort of put their stamp on things officially, instead of leaving it up to the DM's Guild, which is still basically a privately run organization, to say, yeah, this is okay, this is basically official content. So they've got these guidelines and stuff they do, but it's open to bias and personal interpretation of the people who run the DM's Guild stuff. It's not official. Like, you don't get the official Wizards of the Coast, this is canonical information stamp of approval these days. It just doesn't happen. 50 years. Right, yeah, because D&D's about as old as I am. I was born in 73, D&D 74, so yeah, it's about a year younger than I am, and I am nearly 50. Have I played Elden Ring yet? No, don't talk to me about video games. I'm not a video game person. I play like War Robots and Sid Meier's Civilization original version. Like I'm an old school weird game player. I don't play the modern stuff. Distance is pretty subjective in the astral. Yeah, so therein lies the thing. So the astral plane is basically a matter of navigation, not distance. So I think that your ship will basically reach the astral plane, and it's a matter of finding the location that you're trying to get to. Find the portal or the it may look like a crystal sphere from the point of view of people in the astral sea. Like pockets of wild space may look like crystal spheres in the astral sea, but there's no barrier there. You would just fly into it and be within the wild space of that area. So it may be that that's like a big color pool. So you would fly through a color pool portal and be within that wild space of that place. I don't know. You're 3 years older than me. Congratulations. Yeah, Torment had very good voice drops, I hear. Thanks, Anthony. Love the content, great community, keep on going. I plan on it. So this month has been really good just to sit back and do what I enjoy, which is research and read and write. And writing scripts and stuff for the entire month without the pain and hassle of doing all the voice recording and editing and all that sort of stuff, uploading and answering all the questions and stuff has been really nice. And it's given me time to sit back and read a lot of the source material, which I've been trying to get to for a long time. So most of my days I've been sitting down and reading and writing. That's been my holiday, believe it or not. Daggerfall ? It might be interesting to split the edition into ages. Yeah, some sort of time travel book resource would be helpful, for sure. There is something like that for Netheril. You can go back to the Ancient Empire Netheril thanks to Slade and his writing. So there's a lot of information on Ancient Netheril, which is good. Disco forever. Yep, I grew up in the age of disco. It's true. Ding, 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 ding. Is Spelljammer still going to give off Treasure Planet and steampunk vibes? I think it's actually more steampunk and well, not steampunk necessarily, magic punk and Treasure Planet for sure. It's got heavy Treasure Planet vibes compared to even what it was once. So I don't think it loses anything. I think it just gains from these changes. So, and the general vibe that I've gotten from people's reaction is that they're okay with this. That they a lot of people who didn't sort of admit that they didn't like this Crystal Spheres and Phlogiston before are now like, yeah, I never really liked it. I've always been fairly vocal that I've never particularly liked the Crystal Spheres and Phlogiston. I sort of just was like, okay. But yeah, I'm glad that it's going. And it's so easy to just pop that back in there if you want to, because it's such a nothing burger. Like, yeah, you get to the border of the wild space and you have to travel through a big crystal sphere. What's a crystal sphere? I don't know. It's this big mysterious thing built by gods. There's giant statues. I don't know. There's pinpricks that look like stars. Yeah. Maybe only ships with spelljamming helms can pass through from astral to space. Well, there's all sorts of different helms, as you know, Grimhild. So there's Ceres helms, there's Soul helms, there's Arcane Furnace helms, there's the Dwarven Citadel Workshop helms, there's the helm chairs that people sit in and attune to. Oh yeah, that's the other thing. The helms no longer use spell slots, so your character won't have to give up any of their resources. They just have to attune to the Spelljammer helm. It takes a long time to do that, though, longer than usual for attuning to magic items, because the helms are basically artifacts, and well, they're semi-artifacts. They're major level wondrous items, you could say. So they basically just attune to them. Then they get the awareness of everything that's going on around the ship, so they can see and navigate, and they power the ship along, but they don't have to spend their personal resources to do so. I don't know whether they've still got minor and major helms, by the way. Sleep well, Trollsmenon. You like the idea of crystal spheres that are in the astral sea. The astral sea has also got a lot of other stuff as well. Like, for instance, when somebody dies and their soul passes through the astral sea and goes on to the astral plane and goes on to the afterlife, their memories form a crystal or something like that that gets deposited in the astral sea somewhere, like stored. Their memories of their past life get stored for them. If they ever get resurrected, that crystal of memory reconnects with their soul and they reincarnate fully aware of their past life. So that explains how you get to the afterlife and you don't remember your past life, sort of thing. I like it. You always sound so nice in your lore videos, but in your stream it's fucking brutal, mate. True. Yeah. Nothing burger, non-traversy. Yeah. So basically from now on, I'm going to be talking about the new Spelljammer. I'm not going to be talking about crystal spheres and phlogiston. Phlogiston is, as far as I'm concerned, phlogiston is a steampunk device that applies to ray guns and powering odd devices. It's like this. Phlogiston was originally some sort of medium ether stuff, and it works really well in Victorian era steampunk phlogiston driven ray guns and things like that, but it doesn't work so well as a giant interactive, like phlogiston just makes no sense. It's like, what is this stuff? It's the primordial stuff the universe is made of. Well, what about the positive and negative planes and the ethereal plane and proto-matter and demi-planes and all that stuff? So this Spelljammer fits with the planescape and the multiverse cosmology that Wizards of the Coast is building. They're building a big cohesive multiverse for you to interact with and go anywhere to any setting, and it makes sense. So that's great. Since there is no phlogiston, I can now have guns. Yes. Yep, that's right. Phlogiston, by the way, for those of you who are not aware, was combustible. It was explosive. So if you use any flame in the phlogiston sea, it would cause explosions. So you're basically traveling through colourful petrol fumes. Gives me some Stargate Atlantis vibes as well. Yeah, very much so. So now you basically got the method of you can travel by being a planes traveller and using the dreams of the astral, dreams of the blue veil or whatever it's called spell, which essentially means you just sort of imagine yourself into another place and you fade out and you become there. Or you can travel through astral projection, or you can travel through magical portals, or you can travel through planar spells and things, or you can go the long way and travel via Spelljammers. And that's the basic gist of it. The Astral Sea has always had a flow. So it actually does act like the flows of the phlogiston. We don't need to homebrew any new rules or superimpose any rules on the Astral Sea for that. Like, Githyanki have always sailed the Astral Sea in ships, so the rules already exist there for that. That's a good question, Brian. Actually, thank you for that. Brian asked me, what do you think of the low page count? So 64 pages per hardcover book inside the slipcase, which is inside the box set. There's no dice set for this, which I thought was unusual. Normally they would include a custom Astral Sea dice set or something like that, so they haven't done that with this. It's all paper products and stuff. We've got a double-sided map. One side's got the Rock of Braal, which is the traditional home base location that can be located pretty much anywhere. I think they're putting it in the Astral Sea. They may not. I'm not sure. And the Rock of Braal has got its own tradition and stories and interesting characters and things like that. So I think a chunk of that 64 pages is going to be like 1 or 2 pages will be the Rock of Braal. There may be some NPCs in there. We've got the 6-player character races, which are going to take up at least 6 pages in that book. The actual navigation of Spelljammer ships and space combat will probably take up 4 pages, maybe. a lot of the complexity and page bloat in old Spelljammer books was NPCs and monster listings and a lot of information about gravity planes and atmosphere and planet radiuses and stuff like that you did not need. You don't need any of that shit. You can cover it with a random roll table. You can generate worlds with a sidebar random roll chart if you want to. So the modern D&D has streamlined things down to simplifying it to what you need at the table. So the 64 pages is more than sufficient if you're not including like you've got an adventure book in there, you've got a monster menagerie book in there, and you've got the players and DM's guide for the astral plane and the astral sea and how spelljamming works. And that's all it covers, and that's all it needs to cover. So I imagine that 64 pages is just everything that needs to be in there and nothing that doesn't. So yeah, I don't need a bloated page count just for the sake of having 120 pages. I don't really need that. They've split it up into those 3 books so that when you take them out of the slipcase, you don't have to grab the player book off somebody to reference the monster that's about to hit the table, or you don't have to grab the monster book in order to go to the next bit of the adventure. So I'm okay with this. It's an interesting format. It may not work, but I think the sales are going to justify it. I think the sales are going to be pretty strong. The only problem I have with that is that if they're judging whether that product is popular or whether that setting is popular, how do you separate the two? Whether it's people just buying it for nostalgia or because it's interesting or because they don't want to play Pathfinder space stuff. Whether the Wizard of the Coast, how do they discern whether they're buying it because of the new boxed format or because of the actual setting material itself? How do you tell? You can't. So I don't know. I don't know how useful that will be as consumer feedback for them. Scrow, yeah, we don't see the Scrow. The interesting thing is that the new races that they put in there, and Chris Perkins saying this is the first playable ooze character. That's not true. You could play a playable ooze character called the Dracolites from Star Frontiers. In fact, all of those new races, the Hodozi, the Dracolite, sorry, the Hodozi, what are the ooze people called? Plasmoids, and the Thrycreen. The Thrycreen, for instance, were the Vrusk or whatever they were called in Star Frontiers. So Star Frontiers is an old sci-fi game that TSR put out a long time ago. And then they adapted the Vrusk insectoid species for Dark Sun for the world of Athos, and that they became the Thrycreen. And now the Dracolites have been modified, simplified, turned into more humanoid ooze creatures that are a bit more still alien, but a bit more understandable as oozes rather than an amoeboid alien species that walks around on sort of 4 legs and stuff. So they're basically an advancement of those original concepts. So yeah. With the multiverse concept, are they just doing alternate timelines for prime material worlds, or are we getting duplicates of the outer planes? No, I think they share the outer planes in some regard. It's always been a bit weird that way. I've always played it that the different realms share the same outer planes. It's called Spelljamming because that's the traditional name of it. If they changed the name of it to something else, nobody would understand what the hell they were talking about. So previously what would happen is you would give up spell slots for the helms to power the ship. So essentially you would be casting your magical potential into the helm and it would be powering the ship that way. Same way that arcane furnaces, you throw magical items in there, it burns the magic item and uses that magic to power the ship. So it's spell jamming or magic jamming. Jamming as in jamming, foot to the accelerator and moving. Remember, this is back when, like, you know, this is Stargate Next Generation era. People were still into it. Like Planescape, for instance, was back in the era of CB radios and like the Convoy movie with Chris Christopherson and Disco and shit like that. It's a long time ago. Do you think that there's value lost by getting rid of some of the older survival mechanics of old school Spelljammer? No, not at all, because the survival mechanics are still there. You're still a long way from home in an alien environment with creatures there that are predatory and piratical, and you have enough problems to not have to worry about starving to death or dying of asphyxiation. Dying of asphyxiation sucks. Like, you're run out of resources, your ship's broken, and you peter to a stop, and you're now drifting in an alien environment, and there's nothing you can do about it. Everybody roll up new characters. You're just another drifting wreck of undead now. It's that sucked. So yeah, I've got no problem with it. And I've never liked like bookkeeping and accounting in my game. Thank you very much. It's one of the things that didn't appeal to me about Traveller was that all of the accounting and stuff for your ship travel and things. You're fueling your ship for jump drives and things. The main thing that would be a problem in Spelljammer is if your magic-capable people got killed off in your party and all of a sudden nobody could run the helm anymore. That would be a problem. So there's still that element to it. But in this case, you're stranded in the Astral Sea or wild space. I'm not entirely sure of the exact nitty-gritty of how wild space works, but we know that in the astral plane, time is relative. It stops. You don't have to eat or drink or breathe in the astral plane. You can basically just fly through there. Gravity is subjective. I would say in wild space, gravity is much more nuanced. So the way that Spelljammer and gravity works is you are any massive object, an asteroid or a ship or something like that, you basically stick to it like it's got its own gravity. So it's got it's almost like it's a magnet that's the gravity becomes stronger the closer you are to an object in D&D. So you can walk around on the deck of the ship, but if you jump really hard, you'll float off into wild space. Also, you can walk on the deck of the ship, or you can flip around and walk on the underside of the ship as if that's still down. So it's subjective. Wherever the massive object is down. So you can literally walk around an asteroid, like, jamming up the magic slots. Oh, that's good information, Brian. Thank you. The name Spelljamming is based on a class of old-age sail ships called windjammers. Nice. Would that be like clipper ships? I don't know. Oh, yeah, you die of poison here, not asphyxiation. Yeah, good point, Sky. True. I think it would make sense to keep them at least as optional rules. Yeah, maybe they've got them as a sidebar. I don't know. They might reference the old rules in the new book, but, page count is limited. What do you think about the gravity plane of the ship being generated by the ship's helm? Also works perfectly well, but, yeah. Thanks, Nick. How to deal with casters and a weave being different in various material planes. How to mechanically represent some worlds being stronger magic. That is a very good point. One of the things that's very interesting about like Spelljammer is that you can have very weird worlds, and the wild space within those pockets of reality, those different prime material planes that you're heading to, can be very different from each other. So on Earth, for instance, and this is one of the things that I've been dealing with the Aurium dragon. So Aurium is it's basically plutonium. It's basically not plutonium. What is it? Thorium or one of the very radioactive materials. So on Earth, heavy metals have radiation. On Toril, they don't have radiation. It's magical emanations sort of thing. So it's different. So one of the problems, like if you traveled from the Forgotten Realms to Earth, some of the materials in your magical components would kill you from radiation poisoning. Or possibly just fission and combust straight away. So a very high level character with like a magical shield made of Aurium metal arrives on Earth and boom, there's a nuclear explosion as his shield fissions and blows up. Kills everybody in a 200-foot area with an intense dose of radiation. There's a blue flash. Sorry, not thorium. Oh, hang on. I've got to reference a file here. We had a big long, my friend Ian and I had a big long discussion about this because I had a chat with him about Deepa Mascara and what the sage discovers in the book. The Aurium Dragon video, by the way, marks the kind of the end of the Kickstarter book project. So if you've been following my videos in the story of the Sage, the videos from now on are going to change somewhat because they won't be part of that Kickstarter story, but kind of interesting. Anyway, it's complicated. Where are we? Dragons. Oh, if you could only see the file, the monster video files I have here. So well organized. There we are. Aurium Dragon. Polonium. There we go. Polonium. Though, so it's actually a Polonium dragon. Polonium is a red, very interesting looking metal in its raw form, and it's intensely radioactive. So yeah, it's actually, Aurium dragons are actually Polonium dragons in a way, sort of, if that makes any sense. But Polonium has got its own, Aurium has got its own mythological origins and stuff, and I talk about that in the thing. I don't discuss radioactive materials and things like that in the game video, in the video itself, because it's too confusing. Yeah, I don't know when the Kickstarter is going to happen. It's going to happen when I've got the writing done, essentially, and I know what sort of artwork and stuff that I need, because my plan for the Kickstarter, as I've mentioned before, is to write a manuscript, provide that for free for everybody as a PDF, and the Kickstarter essentially will be to pay artists and page layout people and to actually get the book printed in hardcover in a nice format. So the actual content of the book will be split into lo-fi and hi-fi, essentially. So it will be freely available for everybody to read the PDF of the book. So if you're a fan of the channel and my writing, that will be freely available to you. That is because of the copyright rules of Wizards of the Coast, where there cannot be a paywall between their material and the audience. So you can earn money off it, but you can't restrict access to their copyrighted material, their intellectual property. You can use it as long as you're doing it free as a fan resource. So the text of the Kickstarter book will be freely available to everybody, but the additional value of all the artwork, my side notes, any of my homebrew created monsters that have got nothing to do with Wizards of the Coast content, that will all be exclusive to the people who pay for the Kickstarter, if that makes sense. It's a somewhat different way of doing things. Oh, I can talk about the Cosmic Dragons if you want. Is that free text thing true for the GM's Guild stuff as well? No. They have to abide by more restrictive stuff. And I'm really just doing it to save my ass without having to go through everything with a fine-tooth comb to make sure that I don't, mention Beholder or Mind Flayer or any of those trademarked names and stuff like that. I don't have to worry about calling them something else or something like that. I don't think it's really going to be an issue, to be honest. Aurium makes me think it's another name for gold. Yeah. Have a good day have a good night at work, Adrianeth. They said there would be sun and moon dragons in the books as well, right? I don't know if they'll have sun dragons. They've got cosmic dragons or stellar dragons or lunar dragons. They've got moon dragons and something else. Yeah. Why they didn't include them in Fizban's Book of Dragons, I don't know. And I'd say they're probably going to get rid of the Mikado and the Stellar Dragons as they were, because they are very, very, very powerful. Which might get rid of the ability of the Mikado to create a cage out of its horn, which would contain the Shard of Ultimate Evil, which would stop the spread of the Abyss. There you go. That's what the Stellar Dragons can do. So the Stellar Dragons have got one big, huge, patriarch dragon. That's called the Mikado. That's the leader of all of their kind, sort of thing. The big daddy of all the Stellar Dragons. Basically, the biggest dragon you can imagine. It's like you need to pack rations to get from one end of this dragon to the other. It's miles long. Way super huge. It's not a creature, it's an adventure location. That's how big the Mikado is. And it's got So what the stellar dragons do is they collect information and truths, fundamental truths about the universe, and they manifest them as crystals which grow on their skin, like scales. Each one of these crystals is a potent magical artifact, but getting one off a stellar dragon is quite a task, because they don't want to give up anything, obviously. They carry their hoard as part of their body. The Mikado has a horn, a great big horn coming out of its nose, made of this incredible crystal, which is massively potent with magical power and basically contains the raw, lawful truth of the universe, the multiverse. And so if you took that horn off the Mikado, which obviously it doesn't want to give up its horn, and then carve it into a cage, you can put the shard of ultimate evil that Tharizdun brought into the multiverse through his imagination and stop the spread of the abyss. Just stop it in its tracks. So the abyss would then be now something that could be contended with by deities and stuff, and they would fix the multiverse and get rid of it. So yeah, it's the cure to, well, it's the beginning of the cure to the abyss, essentially. But you'd have to have several pantheons of gods cooperating to take on the Mikado. It's very, very powerful. Mikado, not Mikado. Yeah, giant space hamsters will be back, obviously. That's Chris Perkins. You know, that you cannot have Spelljammer of any kind without giant space hamsters, and boo. And Chris Perkins is under the impression that everybody loves giant space hamsters with a passion, which I suppose they do. I'm a bit over boo, to be honest. Rip the horn off and throw it into a spelljamming furnace. That would probably create a planar rift of epic proportions and maybe create some sort of void. It might even create another astral plane. Who knows? But your spelljammer ship would explode for sure. Can the abyss be cured? Yeah, it can. The abyss is a living thing, by the way. It's an aspect of Tharizdun. So Tharizdun, I put a lot of emphasis on Tharizdun, probably much more than he deserves, because it's part of my cosmology and stuff. It's not necessarily 100% canonical, all the stuff I talk about with Tharizdun. And a lot of people might have bones of contention with me saying, you know, well, Tharizdun is basically Azragoth or whatever, the H.P. Lovecraft monstrous god that dreams reality into existence. So if Tharizdun wakes up, reality disappears. Well, in my canon, when Tharizdun is freed or wakes up or realizes that he's in a prison of his own making, all of a sudden, all of the astral dreadnoughts, which he created, and their offspring, the Beholders, which I've kind of homebrewed into the thing, the Beholders will become his angels, essentially, or aspects of him. And Juiblex and all those other aspects of him reintegrate as well. And yeah, it gets crazy. Very crazy. It will be life, but not as we know it. Gord the Rogue killed Tharizdun. Was that in the... that would have been Gord the Rogue. Was that Gary Gygax's original work? His books? I haven't actually read Gary Gygax's original novels. I should. Tharizdun he's the god of entropy, and he's the god of separation. So he separated all the different planes of existence, and he put the astral dreadnought in the astral plane to stop mortal creatures from going through the astral plane to the outer planes. So as far as Tharizdun was concerned, you die and go to the outer planes, but you do not go there as a living creature. And that was his whole thing. So he'd be very pissed off if he ever found any mortal living creature within an outer plane. He would instantly throw them back to where they came from and probably penalize them greatly, or just destroy them outright and consume their soul. So he put the astral dreadnoughts in there to eat anything in the astral plane that they came across to get rid of them. John, Mr. Pickett, could we get a different faction thing going? The Scrobe might be brutal, but the Elven Admiralty was downright genocidal. Yeah, we'll see how we go with the Astral Elves. Yeah, but obviously elves have gotten quite a treatment in 5th edition with the reincarnation and all that sort of stuff. So we'll see how it goes. But essentially they're Astral Eladrin. I mean, they look exactly like Eladrin from 4th edition. So different weave on material planes. Yes, a lot of planes don't have a weave. And that's kind of like in Dragonlance, for instance, there's no weave there. And there may be no restriction on high-level spells in Dragonlance, for instance. But in Dragonlance, the gods sort of disappeared and left the world behind, and magic became like Athos. So you just basically couldn't use it. You'd have to use your own personal resources or something. And a lot of clerics and stuff just didn't have access to the gods. And the arcane spell users, like Rastlin and stuff like that, I don't know. I'll have to go back and check that. But yeah, magic was, it started off as a low magic setting, and then magic slowly returned along with the gods and the dragons and stuff. So dragons kind of like are a representation of magic returning to the world when the dragons appear, creatures of magic and stuff. What do I think of the Clockwork Horror 5e artwork? Oh, Moonring, you had to find the one bone of contention. Okay, so I understand the changes that they've made to the Clockwork Horror, and that they probably didn't have enough page count to provide all the different types of Clockwork Horror or the hierarchy of the Clockwork Horror. But remember, in the original Clockwork Horror listing, there was a lot of mystery as to where they originally came from and stuff. And it's perfectly fine. Like, the Clockwork Horror that they present to you as a fait accompli, that's it, this is the Clockwork Horror, they're all the same like this, is more like, I've been told that they were based on, like the author of those was basing them more on Daleks from Doctor Who, which doesn't make any sense because Daleks are actually cyborgs per se, they're not robots. The Clockwork Horrors are constructs that are obsessed with making more of themselves and converting the entirety of reality to the Clockwork Empire of Clockwork Horrors. So they're essentially a drone invasion force that will consume everything in their path, and they're a horrible blight on the universe, and everybody should kill them on sight and get rid of them. They are they look very similar and remind me a lot of the replicators from Stargate SG-1, which would make a lot more sense for them to introduce them as something like that to the modern audience of role players. So I'm okay with this. I'm okay with making changes to the Clockwork Horrors. They're fine. I can take that base stat template that they have for the Clockwork Horrors and easily make all of the different original types of Clockwork Horrors based on that template. And everybody playing 5th edition, because the system is simplified more, it's much easier to modify and create new different variations on monsters. You can do that on D&D Beyond already with the homebrew section. They make it very easy for you to, they've got the template there, all you basically do is fill in all the spaces, and voila, you can make all the variations of Clockwork Horrors that you want. So it's okay. They basically provided us with a base example creature, and you can take and use that as you will, just the same as every other monster that you've got in the monster manual. You can chop and change and alter them as you see fit. And I think really, if you're using the creatures just as listed, you're losing a lot of the fun of being a dungeon master. No, the Thrycreen didn't make the replicator, the Clockwork Horrors originally. The Clockwork Horrors were made by some race that their planet got destroyed, so they all died. So yeah, but I mean, you can change it. You can have it however you want. AJ, we need to play some Spelljammer together. I don't even care if it's streamed or not. Yeah, that's true. I'm more inclined to play games that aren't streamed, to be honest, because I think streaming or live play games have a certain pressure to them that changes the way that you play. Whereas non-streamed games, you can just basically cut back and enjoy yourself. You don't have to worry about what you say. You can say some pretty questionable shit. Spelljammer Star Destroyer, yeah. Yeah, it doesn't look clockwork anymore. It looks cybernetic, which makes more sense when you think about it. It's a living thing creating more. It's a mechanical life form, more like a transformer. I'd be interested in seeing Transformers get a treatment for Dungeons and Dragons. That'd be cool. Goon balloon video when, AJ? Well, maybe next month when I do the Spelljammer stuff. Or the month after next when I do Spelljammer stuff. Do you think the new starter set is in Forgotten Realms? They have not released any Forgotten Realm content since Candlekeep. I'm drawing a blank there. I've seen the stuff from the new starter set. I don't know. We shall see. Cybernetic Horrors. See, Dungeon Dad and I have been in games together. Well, we've been in one game at least. He was DM though. We haven't played in a game together. But my plan is at some point to run a Spelljammer game for Dungeon Dad and various others. I'd like to see a system for a biotech-focused culture more than just usual metal-based tech for some more variation. Yeah. Yeah, Spelljammer Academy is a free resource that they're going to be putting out. Basically, it's a starter set free resource so that anybody can understand what Spelljammer is about and how Spelljammers work and things like that. So they're going to give you a free Spelljammer Academy so that you don't have to buy the box product to play the game. That's going to be part of D&D Beyond. No, AO is actually extremely limited. He can't even affect the entirety of the surface of Toril. For instance, Karatura is ruled by the Celestial Court. And also there's like Dragon Empires and like Murgone, for instance. We're going to be talking about that in the Warrior Dragon video, maybe. So AO is kind of limited, and he can't even affect the other planets in realm space, I think. He's just basically the overgod of a section of Toril. He's almost like the overgod of Faerun, but not Karatura or Zakara or various other parts of the planet. And yet, he can also change the entire planet. So AO is this superimposed idea that wasn't part of the creator's original plan, you know? AO is supposed to be basically the DM. So anything the DM can do, he's basically the DM's fiat saying, okay, I'm going to change the entire world. And that's AO's doing. And you can just basically assign any powers to AO that you want. He's the ultimate authority. But like AO's just got like a few mentions in the lore. There's actually more lore on Tharizdun than AO. AO's a plot device. Yeah, exactly. Thank you, Paul. Yeah, we're not going to see 6th edition for a very long time, folks. This is what Hasbro is doing, okay? So Hasbro has split the corporation into 3 branches: consumer products, Wizards of the Coast, Magic the Gathering, and electronic games, and everything else. That includes Nerf and Barbie and Mattel and all those whatever the other properties that they own. And so it's a big chunk of the company now. And what their plan is to use Magic the Gathering and Dungeons and Dragons as engines that they can codify and simplify and formulate so that they can divorce it from all fantasy aspects and stuff. Use the 5th edition engine, kind of like D20 system document, you know, like the D20 system could be system agnostic or it could be, setting agnostic. And they'll use the 5th edition rules to bring us G.I. Joe or My Little Pony or any of their other IP that they own and bring us role-playing games based on those. We've seen how this works with like Wendy's putting out products, RPG products and stuff like that. You know, we'll have a McDonald's Happy Meal G.I. Joe RPG card with stats and stuff on one side of it. So 5th edition rules will become pervasive all over the place, and it'll just be unthinkable that anybody will change to a 6th edition. But what we've got now is we've slowly transitioned into 5.5, where we're starting to see a separation from the fantasy material and just look at the rule set as it can run anything sort of thing, which is a video that I made before, which is 5th edition D&D can run any setting that you want. Maybe not perfectly, and obviously if you want to play Call of Cthulhu, play with the Call of Cthulhu rules, but you could play a Call of Cthulhu based D&D game quite easily. We've got rules for madness, we've got all those optional rules and stuff that we can just tack on there. That's the beauty of it being a simple modular system. So yeah. That's right, Dungeon Dad. We will have the tools for the most ambitious crossovers of all time. It's true. Richard B, thank you. Thanks for the content. I've listened to your videos countless times, especially the one on bugbears. Oh, good. Orion, thank you. AJ, I want to see an NPC based on you. Well, there is one. It's in Esper's Emporium of Esoterica and the High Hand Tower and stuff like that. So I'll probably make a video on that NPC at some point. Necromancy Scholar based simultaneously at Candlekeep and Strixhaven. If that's okay with you, what name would you use? There's no way in hell I'll be at Strixhaven. Thank you very much. No. Do with it what you will. It's fine. I'm honoured that I'm in your games at all. Definitely Candlekeep, yeah, but Strixhaven I'd probably visit, I suppose. I'd probably be a guest lecturer at Strixhaven. How's that? Oh, Moonring, I almost missed your super chat there. Oh, before I forget, Space Ixatar yay or nay? No, not Ixatar the other ones. The good guys. The good version of the Ixatar. That's who's going to be in space. So, ha ha ha. Because the astral plane doesn't need flying vampiric space manta rays. Or does it? Ghostbusters tabletop, yeah. Yeah, it's transitioning from a game to a game engine. That's pretty much what I was saying, yeah. Thanks for putting it in better words. A couple of super chats? Did I miss another one? Oh, that's it. Yeah, there's a cousin species which are good Ixatar essentially. They're the ones that live in deeper water. So they live subterranean. So they live in sea caves and stuff like that. They live in the sea underdark. So it's kind of a flipperoo. Instead of as far as the Ixatar are concerned, which are these intelligent manta ray creatures that live in the warm coastal waters of the Forgotten Realms and are all worshippers of Demogorgon, mostly. The good version of them is actually the Underdark one. So they're like the flip case of elves. So the good elves live on the surface and the bad elves live in the Underdark. Well, it's the other way around with the Ixatar. Pinocchio in space. Yep. Ice Pirates. Oh man, that takes me back. Wow, the nostalgia. Oh, do we have Spike here? Where are you? There he is. I mean, there's no reason you can't combine Spelljammer and say Stargate. Yeah, exactly. I mean, Stargate is basically just a portal network. The Batraki created a portal network exactly like the Stargates on the world of Toril. They still exist. In fact, that's part of the Aurium Dragon video, which you're going to enjoy the next month. I'm a wandering lore bard in your homebrew world. You're especially as monster lore with hard-wrought planar traveling. Yeah. How does the sea Underdark not flood the normal Underdark? Are they not connected? Oh no, I'm talking about anywhere where like you can be in the Underdark and there's a sea in the Underdark, and under the sea there's sea caves and there's flooded networks of tunnels and stuff, and there's great big huge chambers which are flooded with. So yeah, there is Sea Dark part of the Underdark. Yeah. And there's Underdark underneath oceans on the world of, like, for instance, there's an Underdark connection between the Sword Coast and the far continent of Mazdaca. So you can travel completely under the trackless sea via tunnels and stuff. So Toril is just Swiss cheesed with Underdark. The Astral Realm does need vampiric space manta rays? Okay. Yeah, the Imaskari relics, Stargates, are based on the Batraki technology. So the Imaskari directly took the Batraki technology and advanced it and used it. Yeah, but we'll be talking about that later. Goblins in space? Yep, there's definitely goblins in space. Yeah, there's been no mention of Neogi yet. I don't know. They'll definitely be a compendium entry for sure, I think. I mean, if they've got space clowns, then yeah. Space clowns are horrific enough. I mean, that's you can put anything in there. Space clowns. Ugh. Any more Rifts Palladium videos? Yes, Ty. I'll probably be making some videos for patrons and the Gluminati only for Rifts and Palladium. That won't be content that I'd put up on the main channel for everybody, because it'd be just too much of a disconnect, because I usually talk about Dungeons and Dragons and stuff. But I'm more than happy to talk about Palladium and Rifts, particularly the Palladium magic system, the way they handled dimensional travel and all that sort of stuff. Because Rifts just, it's far superior in its magic system to D&D. I said it. Palladium books did magic better than D&D from the very outset. Vecna in space with Lord Soth. Yeah, maybe. Vecna, it's more likely that Vecna would have a demi-plane in the deep ethereal plane somewhere. Or, I could picture Vecna taking over a layer of the abyss. Think of the ethereal plane as the good abyss or the neutral abyss. You can make layers of the deep ethereal, which are basically demi-planes under your control, that aren't evil. Space Verdun, yeah. Do undead roll advantage against Demogorgon cultists? I don't know. The thing about Demogorgon is he gets stronger when you fight him, so he's just impossible. It's like the Hulk. He gets mad and big and strong. The more you hurt him, the stronger he gets. So it's just like the only way to fight Vecna, the only way to fight Demogorgon is to not fight Demogorgon. You win by avoiding fighting Demogorgon. As soon as you get into a fight with Demogorgon, he's won. Because he just turns around and uses all that violence against you. How many worlds border the ethereal? All of them. Are there any monsters that prey upon collapsing demiplanes? Yeah, probably the Iomara demons. Acerak needs a green devil face spelljammer ship. Yeah, true. You thought Arborea was the good counterpart for the Abyss. Well, I mean, free real estate. Yeah, we talked all about dragons while you were gone, Rex. Sorry. Demogorgon has to have limits though, right? Otherwise, you didn't just march into the Nine Hells or Mount Celestial or whatever. No. Yeah, the main limitation of Demogorgon is that he's actually two different personalities who are fighting against each other, kind of like two different pirate captains. One's very mercurial and emotional and reactionary and very dangerous. Like he's the coke-fueled crazy one. And then the other one is more calculating and scheming and planning and plotting. And he kind of controls the other side of himself. But they're at war with each other and actually want to separate and have always wanted to do so, which would be the end of Demogorgon as we know it. But in that regard, he's impossible to mind control and stuff like that because you can't control both aspects of him. So, yeah, he's interesting. He's weird. He looks weird. He acts weird. He behaves weird. He's just strange. Some strange mutant. Some original creation. Too weird to live. Too cool to die. Hulk versus Demogorgon. Oh, the Hulk would just get pulverized. Demogorgon would just eat him. Do you have thoughts on the Crimson Sphere fan Crystal Sphere for Athos? No, not really. Again, I'm not thinking in terms of crystal spheres anymore. Just not. Athos is interesting because it's supposed to be in the far, far future. So you've got, I imagine trying to get to Athos, Dark Sun, you would arrive and it would be this green, lush planet full of happy halflings. That's the contemporary world of Athos. It's only if you travel far, far, far into the future where the universe is on the brink of dying out. That's Dark Sun. That's supposed to be in the far, far future. Where the sun is dying out, and stuff, because they've drawn energy from the sun to ravage the planet. Dark Sun's a really dark, fucked up setting when you think about it. When you really look at the lore of it, it's messed up, man. Messed up. They destroyed a planet in 3 different stages and mutated all the halflings into versions of the different races. So an elf from Athos is actually a halfling genetically. They're like, what? It's like, yeah. Read the lore on Athos, people. It's all the halflings' fault. Spin-off channel, I suppose I could make a Palladium Books spin-off channel, or just a every other lore channel. Like I could talk about Warhammer 40k lore and Spelljammer and not Spelljammer and Palladium Books stuff. Yeah, I suppose so. I suppose I could. In my experience, though, most of the creators who have concentrated on one channel for a long time, who spin off into other channels, it really hurts their original channel and their original content put out. So, yeah, I'd rather just continue putting out material on D&D, because that's my niche and that's what people want. But if you want to ask me any questions about Palladium in the live streams, feel free. Test me out. Ask me really obscure questions. Boris the Dragon. Oh, God. Yeah, the Neogi are a thoroughly nasty species, and I think it's fine. I think it's fine. Like, piracy and slavery and stuff like that, they still exist in the world. It's no point in saying, oh, like slavery can't exist in Dungeons and Dragons because it's too problematic. It's like, oh, great. So you're editing out the reality of the world that we live in with trafficking humans and that sort of stuff? No, we should be able to address these issues in our games. It's perfectly fine. And like the game is marketed at the years age 12 and up. By the age of 12, you should be telling your kids about the grim, nasty realities of the world they live in, because they're about to head out into the world as independent adults, or teenagers or whatever. I think 12-year-olds are quite capable of handling the concept of slavery. They live in a state of slavery because they have parents. Have I watched Our Flag Means Death? No, I'm currently watching Black Sails at the moment and thoroughly enjoying it. Do you think Birthright is going to be the new Spelljammer confirmed joke now? No, I think Dark Sun is going to be the Dark Sun confirmed joke. Yeah, you need evil to have good and heroic. You need conflict. Sometimes two good nations at conflict with each other because they have differing views on something is also very interesting, because the good side will paint the other as bad and evil. So I think kids these days would benefit more from the idea of propaganda and gaslighting and the way that media is used to manipulate the truth. I think kids these days need that sort of education in Dungeons and Dragons games, role-playing games, to prepare them for the fact that media lies to them, that the fact that everything they watch on TV and the internet is nuanced and spun in some particular motive or some particular reason why they're saying it. They're concentrating on this body of facts and ignoring the other. So I think role-playing games that teach kids some discernment about the information sources, or that they need to investigate further to get the full picture, I think that's what we need to concentrate in the modern game, more than worrying about slavery and torture and stuff like that, because the world is full of violence and stuff. The world is more violent now than it was when D&D was first developed. Like, population pressures, environmental conditions, and things like that. The world is a harsher place now in some regards than it used to be. But in other regards, the world is much better, like child education, poverty, birth rates and stuff like that, education of women and things like that is definitely improving. So, yeah. But if you pay attention to the media, they paint a different picture of the reality of the planet we live on. In actual fact, it's not exactly like that. When you travel to these places, which you've been seen on the news as war-torn shithole wastelands, in actual fact, they're not. They're much like the places that you're quite used to, and in most places in the world, you're quite perfectly safe just walking around. Like, yeah, it's perfectly fine. So, yeah, don't trust the media. That would be the thing that I put into Dungeons and Dragons games. Don't trust the media. You've got a lot of NPC journalists and stuff like that who have got evil motivations. That would be good. I'd like to see a race of Spelljammer aliens who basically just spin bullshit and try and hoodwink everybody all the time, and paint them very much like a parody of the modern media. So I'd like to see some creatures which are based on modern evils. Yeah. Thank you, Andrew C. Love the channel, AJ. Do you think the introduction of Spelljammer, do you think with the introduction of Spelljammer, do you think they will interconnect all of the Hasbro in an official way, a sort of Hasbro verse, if you will? Yes, Yes, I do. That'll be mostly through Magic the Gathering. There's been some really interesting signposts with Magic the Gathering and the way it's changed. And a lot of people I've noticed have dropped out from playing the online card game. So I don't know whether there's been a downturn in general with the role-playing audience, but it seems a lot of my role-playing friends have just stopped playing Magic the Gathering recently, or for the last few months. I'm not sure entirely when. That might have been the introduction of the werewolf set. But the Mikado, what is it? The latest set, Neon Genesis, Neon something. The latest winter set that they put out was their highest selling winter set they've ever had. They earned $100 million from that. So Magic the Gathering is not slowing down, and it's got a good chance of integrating even more strongly with D&D. And the fact that they're now a branch of the company's activities. So yeah, we may see a lot more integration between Magic the Gathering lore stuff and Wizards of the Coast's D&D lore stuff. I don't know. But yeah, interesting to pay attention to. I see that's resonated a lot with people. Like, introduce the idea through role-playing games that the media is lying to them. This would basically be a version of the Satanic Panic, right? Because the religious people were originally really worried that kids would be presented with alternate imaginary afterlives and stuff like that. And it's like the religious people at the time were very, very worried that their religious doctrine would get overridden by and seen as the fantasy stuff, comparison with fantasy stuff. It's like, well, so they didn't like the kids having critical thinking in regards to fiction and stuff and things that aren't real, that they can't see in front of them. I think we need to do that with the media. Like, we need to educate kids these days that the media is actually lying to them all the fucking time, and politicians just lie to them all the time. And then the media and politicians would start to really worry about D&D because it essentially builds critical thinking into those kids. And it's a medium that allows us to parody and therefore examine something. Like, comedy is a great way of examining problematic issues. Role-playing games are also an excellent way of examining problematic issues, because role-playing games can't hurt you. You may be psychologically uncomfortable at times, but they can't physically harm you, So it's an excellent medium for expanding your consciousness or introducing new ways and concepts of things. Like, the idea of role-playing games is you step into another character and try and imagine the universe through their point of view. And that's an excellent way of looking at things critically, Yeah, I don't want to directly say that religion competes with fantasy, but it did. That's the whole reason why the Satanic Panic happened in the first place, is because they felt directly threatened by fantasy, because religion is fantasy. And they expect you to believe it. They'd say, like, look, Lathander is up in the sky and you should be worshipping Lathander. It's like, well, what if I make up another imaginary god? Well, then Yeah. Religion had every right to be very threatened by role-playing games, for sure. And they still do. Free thinkers are dangerous, Phil. That's exactly right. Yeah, there's a lot of people in the world that don't want you thinking independently and discerning bullshit. They don't want you seeing through their lies. Generation X, for instance, we've been raised on television and we've been raised on the evolution of advertising. Back in the day, cigarette companies used to tell you that tobacco was good for you and reduce stress and stuff. Do you know that tobacco companies put a lot of research into trying to get rid of polonium from tobacco leaves? Do you know that tobacco is actually radioactive? And part of the problem with dying from cancer from tobacco is because it contains traces of polonium? Yeah, you're actually dying from radiating your lungs. Back in the day, they used to think that radium was good for you. They wanted to put polonium in petrol so that the radiation would make your spark plugs, sorry. They made polonium spark plugs. Firestone made polonium spark plugs so the radiation would make your engine run better. Don't trust anything that the media tells you, for God's sakes. Be discerning, play role-playing games, open your mind, and call bullshit what it is when you find it. And I think that's a good point to end the live stream, everybody. Have an excellent week, and I'll be back with a lot of dragon videos coming up next month. Yeah, your weed may possibly have polonium in it. I don't know. But tobacco certainly absorbs polonium from the environment, that's for sure. Agree to disagree that religion is inherently fiction. Well, that's fine, Ag. I don't want to offend religious people. But, you know, I have every right to my views and to express my views as well. Expressing my truth is not an attack on you. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff I don't talk about. I know things. Okay, everybody. My research into Dungeons & Dragons takes me to strange places, and reading about polonium was very fascinating. That rant turned to like... Okay, great. You can't be dogmatic like that was a common saying in the 80s. Yeah, exactly. I bet a lot of people are smoking a bong right now going, oh shit. Don't mix tobacco with your weed, people. I'll slap you around the face and neck if you do that. It's a horrible thing to do. Polonium wand, yeah. All right. I'm out of here.